Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the PalFish motion sensing floor lamp, which promises clarity and comfort to you and your children's eyes. Let's find out more. Before we start, this is a sponsored video. PalFish did send me this product for free. However, this did not impact my opinion and my review, which remains objective and unbiased. There's an interesting story behind PalFish, the company that makes this lamp. It actually started out of a passion for children's education, and they started by helping children learn English. But apparently they received a lot of feedback from families that their children's eyes were strained while studying, and this led them to develop this lamp, which focuses on mitigating eye strain and giving children a more comfortable and safer learning experience with better lighting. I thought that was an interesting story, but how exactly does such a lamp deliver on that? Well, it's actually interesting. There's a couple of things. But before we get to that, let's talk about setting this up, which was fairly easy and straightforward. Connect the two connectors together and slide the two rods into each other and secure them with the screws, and then slide the base into that rod and secure that and tighten the screws. Afterwards, connect the light to the connector and secure that with the screws, and voila. The lamp is quite bulky and heavy. It stands at about 2 meters or about 6.5 feet, and it weighs 16 kilograms or about 35 pounds. So while setting up is easy and straightforward, you might be better off if you have a pair of helping hands to help you set this up. So now let's talk about how exactly does this or can this lamp promote healthier and safer lighting for your children. And let's start with the color temperature. So the lamp has a color temperature of 4000 Kelvin, which mimics 10 a.m. sunlight. And the idea behind this is that it's very close to natural light, which is quite comfortable. Second thing is that the light is flicker free to reduce eye strain and fatigue, and also has blue light certification to protect eyes. Thirdly, it has full spectrum light and has 560 LEDs that give you 360-degree illumination. And the interesting part is that it has dual illumination. So there are LEDs on top of the lamp and also at the bottom part of the lamp, with the lower LEDs shining on your space and the upper LEDs shining on the ceiling and then reflecting that uniform light. You also have independent control of both zones, so you can turn on and off each one independently, or of course you can have them both on at the same time. And the benefit here as well is that it reduces shadows, and because it has those dual zones and because there's light that's also reflected on the ceiling and back down. And I actually tested that ability to see how well it reduces shadows, if any, and I was pleasantly surprised. So as you can see from this first shot, I was reading a book, and that was with the lights on in my room, and they were coming from multiple sources. There was a light above me from the ceiling lamp, but also lampposts behind me and in front of me. So light was coming in from all directions, and still you get shadows, as you can see. But then when I turned these lights off and I turned the PalFish on, I was very surprised to see that there were barely any shadows. And mind you, I was not sitting right under the PalFish. It was actually a few feet away from me, in front of me even, but even then it was able to drastically reduce the shadows, as you can see. Now, we said earlier it has 560 LEDs, and that means it's bright. It's very bright. Actually, it's rated at 9500 lumens. And to be honest, I was blown away by how bright it is. So in my studio, in my regular lighting setup, I have two floor lamps in both corners, one in the rear, and I have a light in the ceilings. I have 4 different lights. When I turn them off and turn the floor lamp on, it's actually brighter than all 4 lights. And I was very surprised from that one single light source. It was able to effectively light my entire studio. So it's very bright and can easily light up a room. They say up to 180 square feet or 17 meters squared. You can of course adjust the brightness. You don't have to have it shining at full brightness, and it's a stepless adjustment from 10% up to 100%. And there are 2 more interesting features about this light bulb. First one is motion sensor. So there's a motion sensor integrated, which can turn on the lamp whenever someone walks into a room. And then if you walk out of the room after 8 minutes, it's going to drop down the brightness to 10%. And with a further 8 minutes of no activity or no motion detected, it's going to automatically turn off the lamp. Now, this motion sensor is coupled with another sensor, which is an ambient light sensor. And that one is also an interesting sensor because it measures the ambient light in the room and it adjusts the brightness of the lamp accordingly. The idea behind this is that you can turn that sensor on on, adjust the brightness of the lamp to suit your needs or desires, and then just set it and forget it. During the day, and if the sun is shining into the room, the ambient sensor is going to detect all that ambient light and it's going to dim the light bulb, and then come nightfall or as the day gets darker and darker, it's going to gradually increase the brightness of the lamp to match that initial brightness that you set. That one is quite interesting because it means you can technically leave the lamp on with that sensor all the time, and if there's enough light in the room, it's going to be at 10% brightness, and then when the room gets darker and darker, it's going to start gradually increasing that brightness. And of course, if you have the motion sensor enabled, if you walk out of the room, it's going to turn off to save energy, and then when you walk into the room, it's going to turn back on. Now, I've been testing both sensors for a while now, and for the most part, they work quite well. The motion sensor is quite sensitive. However, if you're sitting rather motionless, of course, it's not going to detect that motion. And after 8 minutes, it's going to dim the light. But if you're doing any normal activity and there's some motion involved, it's going to keep detecting you and the light's going to stay on. I've also tested the ambient light sensor, and for the most part, it also works. Now, initially, when I first tested it, and I closed my blackout curtains just to see if it reacts, and it didn't, I thought either the sensor was defective or it simply doesn't work properly. So I reached out to PalFish, and they explained to me that they specifically designed it to be gradual in reacting to the ambient light, so it's easier and more gentle on the eyes, which is actually pretty neat. So I kept the light on all day, and indeed, as the day got darker and darker, the brightness kept increasing until nightfall, where it got to a higher brightness and simply illuminated my entire studio. Now, in terms of controls, there are touch buttons on the light, and as I said, you have independent control of both the upper and the lower lights. You can turn them on or off independently, or you can press this middle button that's going to turn on both lights at the same time. To regulate the brightness, you're going to press and hold either on the independent upper or lower lights, or on this sun, which is going to control both lights at the same time. You press and hold, and it's going to gradually start increasing brightness, and once it gets to the peak brightness, it's going to start flashing. Same way with decreasing brightness, just press and hold again, and it's going to step down the brightness until it gets to the lowest setting, and then it's going to flash. And then the other two buttons are for the motion sensor, which you can activate or deactivate. And the other one is the ambient light sensor, which you can also have activated or deactivated. So I was generally very impressed with this light. I was very impressed with how bright it was. And this is not something I thought about before, but the color temperature indeed was very gentle on the eyes, and I was pleasantly surprised that really it does reduce shadows, which is also not something I had thought about before. Now, while this was designed for kids, and I can easily see this placed in children's rooms, but adults can obviously also use it for studying, for working, or even simply as a light source in a room. Now, having said that, the lamp is not perfect, or shall I say, there are a few things I would have liked if they were different. None of them are deal breakers, but I'm a bit picky in that regard. For starters, it would have been nice if there was a remote controller with a lamp. Mind you, one of their unique selling points is that you do not need a remote controller because of the two sensors, so you can literally keep the light on all the time. It's going to adjust brightness according to ambient light. It's going to turn off if you're not in a room, which is great. Nonetheless, it would have been nice if you also had the option to control it via remote control. Sometimes I just want to turn it off or reduce the brightness, and if I can do that from the comfort of my couch or chair rather than just walk up to it and press the buttons, that would have been nice. Also, it would have been nice if there was some smart home integration like Alexa or Google Home, which means you would be able to control this with your voice. Again, not a deal breaker. And again, I do understand this was not what the product was designed for what the lamp was designed to do. I think it does a fantastic job at it. So there you have it. I'll put links in the description to the product page of the lamp. These are affiliate links, so if you do decide to purchase this, I would appreciate if you would use the links. I may earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. This will greatly help support the channel. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And as always, if you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.